Hello. This video is about the houses and the 12 houses and the 12 signs of the zodiac. Remember what the zodiac is. It's the apparent path of the sun, the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun, and the apparent path of the planets and the moon around Earth. This is the zodiac. And these 12 houses and 12 signs are simply divisions in the zodiac. So the 12 signs are divisions in space. The 12 houses are divisions in time. The houses very much work in correlation with a clock, with time itself. So we have the 12 symbols, the 12 letters of an alphabet, if you will, the astrological alphabet. And these 12 signs and 12 houses share a very much similar energy. So the first house is the same as the first sign. The first house and the things of the first house are the things of Aries. This is the house, the ascending sign, and the first house that describes the person's physical vehicle and the outer personality, the mask, the outer self, how one functions in this lifetime. This is described by the first house. So the first house describes who you are, the I am of the person, or of the circumstance, whatever chart you are examining. The second house is always what the first house has. So the first house is who you are, the second house is what you have. It's your money, it's your possessions, it's your income, it's how you earn your income, all of that. The story of the second house in a birth chart gives all that information. How the individual handles finances and money and possessions, how they feel about them and how they earn that, and the karmic connection to these things in the lifetime. The second house, the house of finances and possessions, and one's attitude towards these things. The third house, how the individual thinks, how one thinks. The third house is the natural Gemini house, as this is the first house being the natural Aries house. The second house is the natural Taurus house, all about things and finances and money and what you have and how you feel about what you have and how you earn it. Third house is how you think, Gemini. Everyday mental attitudes. It's your neighborhood. It's how you interact with the neighbors, and it's the early schooling. It's elementary schooling. Many, many things are connected to each house. These are the main things I'm talking about with this video, but there are endless things attached to the sign and attached to the house. The first house in the sign Aries says, I am. The second house and Taurus, the sign Taurus, says, I have. The third house and the sign Gemini says, I think. The fourth house, the Cancer house, says, I feel. And this fourth house is all about your land, your residence, your home, your real estate. It tells the story about these things. The mother. The fifth house is the house of your children and what you create in life. So if you're an artist, this is a very important house. This is the house of entertainment, of teaching, of speculative investment, and of artistic and all kinds of creation. So it's one's children as well. The sixth house, this is the Leo house. The sign Leo says, I will. The sixth house is the house of Virgo, the house that says, I analyze. And it is the house of work environment, how you get along with other people on the job. It refers to anyone that would work for you, an employee. If you're in such a position to have a servant, this is your relationship with your servants. It's also the house of food and circumstances related to food and diet And most importantly, it's the house of health issues. So we have who we are, what we have, how we think, where we live, our children we create, and what we do, our work. This is the work and how sick or healthy we are. Once we get above the horizon, the houses all and the signs start talking about interactions with others. So the seventh house is about interpersonal relationships, one-on-one. It's the marriage partnership or any committed partnership in business or personal. It's also the house of open enemies, of peace and war in a country. It's how one interacts with another. The seventh house, the house of Libra, and it says, I balance. The eighth house is the house of death. It's the Scorpio house, ruled by Pluto. Yes, each one of these signs and houses has a planet associated with it, attached to it. The eighth house is the house of death. It's the house of finances, the second and the eighth. Second is your own personal income. Eighth house is shared money. Money you inherit, or money you borrow, or money you lend. It's money you share with your partner, and it is indeed your partner's money. It's the karmic and astral plane area, so it's one of the houses of dreams. It's one of the sexual houses. The fifth and the eighth are the two. Just as the second and the eighth are the two financial houses. So the eighth house is the house of death. And this can be not just your own death, but giving information about dealing with other people's death. It's also the house again of shared finances and large investments in big money picture. The ninth house, the Sagittarian house. But the eighth house and the sign Scorpio, they say, I desire. The ninth house is I see. It's Sagittarius. And the ninth house is long distance travel and faraway places and people from faraway places that you might interact with. It's the law courts, the legal system. It's churches. It's the whole religious and philosophical house. Higher learning and philosophical perspectives. This is the ninth house. It's the government, along with the 10th. The 10th house is very much the government. And Capricorn, the sign Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. This is all about the father, as the fourth is the mother, traditionally, in traditional classical astrology. Back in the day when mother was usually in the home and father was out with a profession. This is a very ancient subject. Patriarchy was strong when this was first devised. 10th house. The father. The individual's professional reputation and output into their community. I use is the two-word phrase for Capricorn and the 10th house. Practical concerns along with the 6th. These are the two work houses. The 11th is the house of Aquarius, ruled by Uranus. So the 11th house is the house of friends and acquaintances and groups of people you would work with for common cause. It's your long-term goals and aspirations. These are the things that the 11th house symbolizes. The 12th house is the Pisces house. The sign Pisces is associated with the 12th house. I believe is the two-word phrase for Pisces. The two-word phrase for the 11th house in Aquarius is I know. So Capricorn is I use, Aquarius is I know, and Pisces is I believe. More than any other sign, the sign Pisces has a capacity for a deep, strong belief system. Pisces, the sign Pisces, and the 12th house. Hidden away places like retreats, places where one rests, like a retreat, a sanitarium. This is the house of hospitals and jails, hidden away, secluded places where one goes for healing or where one goes where society puts you aside. It's a hidden house. These are the two hidden houses. They symbolize hidden things. This is very much karmic, a karmic house associated with the planet Neptune. So this is giving you an idea of what the 12 signs and what the 12 houses symbolize in this language of astrology. And the thing is to utilize this information in that if you observe your birth chart or you're observing any chart and you're observing the transiting planets transit along through a chart, then you know that when Saturn is going through the second house, because this is the financial house, the house of finances and possessions and income in your own personal chart or in a country's chart, Saturn brings with it that very serious karmic energy. Sometimes we'll see stress in the finances when Saturn's traveling through that house, where debt and overwhelming debt seems to take over, or difficulties with the income. Or alternatively, people voluntarily become very self-disciplined with their own finances, and then it becomes a time of thrift and focusing on paying off any debt or saving money. And that's an excellent thing to do when Saturn's traveling through the second house, because as it transits along, any given planet is going to drag with it the energy of that planet through the house, showing up in your life or in whatever you're studying, whatever country's chart. In the second house things, Saturn is going to be operative, Saturn's energies in second house things when transiting Saturn is traveling through your second house. When transiting Uranus is traveling through one's personal 12 houses, it shows up as sudden change. New beginnings, sudden change. Saturn brings serious potential restriction, either karmic or voluntary. A serious focus of energy. Uranian energy is all about change and exciting new beginnings and doing things one has never done before. Unusual things, different things. This is what Uranus stimulates as it slowly transits through each house. In reading the language of astrology, knowing what the houses symbolize is a major part of the language. Take care.